Been seeing a lot this week about the Sinclair Broadcast Group, the biggest TV station owner in the USA, and they're hoping to get bigger. This company was already controversial. Jared Kushner had disclosed that the Trump campaign swapped special access to his father-in-law in exchange for coverage by Sinclair stations. And the company requires its local stations to air within newscasts conservative commentaries by former Trump aide Boris Epshteyn. And this week, Sinclair station's news anchors became the news as they were assigned to recite a script from the Home Office.
Some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control.
The message cautions that biased and false news has become all too common on social media, and that some news media outlets publish stories without fact-checking. When a widely distributed video montage betrayed local anchors' messages as orders from headquarters, social media exploded. What's really happening here? The big picture? Let's ask Mark Crispin Miller, New York University professor of media studies. Welcome, Professor.
Great to be with you.
Mark, after networks were seduced into embed coverage of the Iraq invasion and really failing to read the room in the 2016 presidential election, national establishment media have lost credibility. Are the local news people reciting this corporate script more believable?
Well, I mean, this is a complicated situation because on the one hand, it is absolutely true that Sinclair is too big. It owns too many stations. No company should own that many TV stations. It's also true that Sinclair is run in a kind of ruthless top-down way, and it is a right-wing propaganda machine. These charges are all completely accurate. However, I don't think that this big hoo-ha over these various local anchors being forced to recite the same script is really motivated by a concern for media democracy and the First Amendment rights of journalists. You know, obviously, the local anchors all over the country being forced to read that script is very troubling. It's a very powerful meme to talk about it and so on. We think of Big Brother and so on, pro-Trump propaganda. But all the mainstream outlets, the print outlets and others that are deploring what's going on at Sinclair are really guilty of exactly the same thing that they're criticizing, okay? Because while those anchors are all mouthing the exact same script, I mean verbatim, we see the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN and MSNBC and the networks and NPR and PBS, I could go on and on and on, all following the same script, albeit in different words, when it comes to some of the most important stories facing us today. We cannot actually find any divergence whatsoever from the state-dictated script on things like Russia's meddling in the election, or Russia poisoning the Skripal in Salisbury, or the civil war in Syria, you know, with its freedom-loving rebels fighting the oppressive government of Assad, etc. I mean, I could go through quite a long list of stories like that where all the dissident opinion, all the contradictory information is not only rigorously suppressed and shadow banned online, but also smeared and ridiculed and identified as Russian propaganda. So I think that those criticizing Sinclair in this case should take a good hard look in the mirror.
Well, witness the power of video, because this video montage, the mosaic that's been bouncing around the internet, has betrayed Sinclair doing, if I understand you, what you figure most of them do, correct?
Exactly, but doing it in a much more egregious and ham-fisted way. I mean, what Sinclair is doing, it's doing badly, you know? It's too obvious.
Right.
Propaganda cannot be obvious.
Correct.
Propaganda has to come at us as something other than itself.
It's got to be
subtle. It has to come at us as journalism, exactly. And the stuff from Sinclair, you know, it's like something right out of Orwell's 1984.
It really does have that look. Thank you, Professor Mark Crispin Miller from New York University.